everyone, it's Mary Brownlee, licensed professional counselor and trauma therapist. Today we're going to talk about a really important topic, narcissism, and specifically narcissistic personality disorder. We're going to talk about the different types of narcissism, overt versus covert, and what that means. And we're going to talk about, in general, why this topic is so important. It's a topic that's close to my own heart because individuals like this made a negative impact on my life, as well as a lot of my clients that I see. I'm a trauma therapist, so that means I treat a lot of people with post-traumatic stress disorder, complex PTSD, a lot of like depression and anxiety. People who grow up with these type of individuals raising them really struggle with like self-worth and shame, identity, purpose and meaning. All of that is impacted in a developing person who grows up with an incredibly self-absorbed parent. So this topic is near and dear to my heart. I really believe that everyone should have access to a good trauma therapist if they're able to. And if they don't have access to one, that's what I'm here for. That's why I created this channel, is to help people just like you who might be looking for answers and don't know where to start. I have lots of videos on my channel about healing complex trauma and complex PTSD and the impact of childhood trauma on us as human beings. So feel free to subscribe. There's a lot more great content on my channel. And I also will be releasing videos weekly on the various topics of healing complex trauma, identifying abusive and unhealthy individuals, creating boundaries, finding safety in the future, healing purpose and meaning and your authentic self, and a lot of other great topics. So without further ado, let's get started. So personality disorder has a few key ingredients, but basically what you're looking at is a human being that has an incredibly pervasive set of behaviors and a cognitive mindset that's very fixed. They're very resistant to change, and they don't have a lot of insight into why they are the way they are, and that impacts how they treat people. So there's 4 different domains that people with personality disorders essentially have deficits in. The first one is cognition. So again, the way they perceive the world and interpret the world is through a very distorted lens. It's not based in what's reality and what's accurate. This is a lens based maybe on their own trauma, for example. The research around personality disorders is that it's environment plus genetics. So maybe they have a difficult temperament they were born with, but then maybe they had their own abuse and trauma. But either way, what happens is they develop into a young adult, and then later, across their entire lifespan, they have this extremely rigid set of beliefs and behaviors that are extremely resistant to change. So again, non-disordered individuals, they're going to have an ability to examine themselves. They have an ability to have insight and understanding about why this behavior happened, what this trigger means. And they oftentimes want to work on themselves. You're not going to see this with somebody who's high up in the traits of a personality disorder. Oftentimes, they don't see a problem with their behaviors. Again, it's very fixed, and they have very black and white thinking patterns that are very rigid. So they're usually pretty resistant to change, which is why you don't see a lot of highly disordered people, especially with narcissism, coming into therapy, because they don't think there's a problem with their behavior. And you could see how this is going to set up for, say, if they're a parent and they have a child, traumatizing that child, because they really believe my way is the right way and the only way. And the way they view their child is very disordered. They have very unrealistic expectations of their children, and abuse is very, very common, unfortunately, with this personality disorder. Emotions. So they often have difficulty controlling their emotions, and their moods are more intense and they rapidly shift. So that's another thing we see with those with personality disorders and narcissism specifically. Oh my goodness, if you've unfortunately had a relationship with somebody who's narcissistic, you know that they can flip on a dime and go from 0 to 100 in incredible amounts of rage at any perceived slight, or you just saying, no, that doesn't work for me, or I disagree with you. It doesn't even have to be something major. Just you essentially having your own thoughts, feelings, perceptions is enough to trigger narcissistic rage. So again, Easy to see how this would be damaging to developing children when we have a parent that fundamentally does not respect the humanity of the child that they're raising and this child's independence and their own thoughts and feelings and perceptions are definitely not respected. Interpersonal functioning. So this is relationships. This is the next domain that's impacted by personality disorders and narcissism specifically. They have difficulty creating and maintaining positive, nurturing, loving, safe relationships. Again, it's very hard to be in a relationship with somebody who has to always be right, who doesn't care about your feelings, and essentially has a very manipulative interpersonal style to get their needs met. And oftentimes, narcissists can be incredibly controlling. So the relationships that they do have are sometimes brief in nature because other people don't typically, healthy people will not typically put up with behavior like this, or they'll find people kind of like a puzzle piece where a narcissist and a codependent will kind of lock into place and meet each other's needs. Narcissists love to have slaves and sycophants. So if they pair with somebody who has low self-worth, who's very codependent, who's a people pleaser, who likes to be needed, oh boy, that is pretty much their favorite relationship so that they can have a servant and somebody to essentially meet their every need and keep them happy their whole life. But you're not going to see a reciprocal loving relationship where they're able to meet the other person's needs. That doesn't happen in narcissism. And then the last domain is impulse control. So they often act without thinking about the consequences of their behavior. So this is something I see pretty commonly in very dysfunctional parents as well, and especially parents who have a higher level of narcissism, is they're going to act on a dime and based on their strong emotions. So not only are their emotions very intense and strong, especially anger, but they're going to act very impulsively to discharge that negative emotion. And so you'll see a lot of emotional and verbal abuse and lashing out in this type of relationship as well. So narcissistic personality disorder has a few overarching things I want to talk about. Every single person who's high up on that narcissistic spectrum is going to have the following traits, essentially. This is from our DSM-5, our Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. And so essentially, if you were looking at my huge Bible, as I like to call it, of mental health disorders, this is what you would find in terms of describing people with narcissistic personality disorder. All right. So all narcissists, regardless of whether they're covert or overt, or there's some other ones out there too, they all share these qualities, okay? What they differ in is how they express their narcissism. That's the covert versus overt. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, so all narcissists are very self-important. They believe they're superior to other people. They can do no wrong. Everyone else is the problem. They will never, ever, ever be the problem. They are excessively focused on their achievements and superficial things like maybe their looks or beauty or their sense of power or their job or how much money they have or in a sense of like an ideal romanticized love. None of this is based in reality. It's definitely, again, focused on things that are just not based in what a typical person would value. It's much more about appearances being valued over genuine connection, and fame and power and wealth is valued over genuine human connections. Another reason why they damage children and they damage relationships that they're in. They believe that they are better than other people and should only associate with similar high status people. Of course, if you're not part of the in crowd, you're out. They require admiration from others, for sure. Again, narcissists essentially are very empty inside. They don't have a solid sense of self. And because they don't have a solid sense of self, they're looking for other people around them to prop them up and make them feel good about themselves and continue to tell them, no, you're special, you're great, you're so amazing, because fundamentally they don't have a strong sense of self. And that's one of the main deficits here that causes somebody to have narcissistic personality disorder. They are highly entitled and they believe others should comply with their wishes immediately. I like to call them control freaks. A lot of times people, the higher up on the spectrum, the more you're going to see this extremely rigid control freak type of behavior where everybody better jump to it. And if they say jump, you say how high, basically. And you better do exactly what they want you to do, or you're going to be abused, punished, demeaned, or, even rejected. Like essentially, I don't want a relationship with you anymore. So the narcissistic discard is common when people stop serving their needs. All right, they lack empathy. This is huge, huge, huge. Empathy is the cornerstone, really, of what builds and sustains meaningful, loving relationships, is our feeling a sense of like caring about the other person. And if the other person's in distress, we sense that, we care about that. We don't want the people we love to be in distress. But needless to say, narcissists do not feel distress when the people they care about, I use that term loosely, are in distress because, again, they're expecting you to center on their needs. Okay? So, yeah, they don't care about your needs. At the end of the day, you're there only as a prop to make sure that their needs are taken care of. You're an object. So the analogy I like to give, just like this chapstick here that I have, when this chapstick is all gone, I'm going to toss it in the garbage. It's useless, right? It's gone. So that's how narcissists treat people. We are objects. And as soon as we are essentially out of chapstick, we're no longer useful and we're going to go in the garbage, the narcissistic discard. So that's why, again, they cannot sustain meaningful relationships because they're users. They use people. Healthy relationships don't do that. They're often envious of other people and believe that others envy them. There's a lot of projection that goes on with narcissists as well. They want what other people have, and they're constantly stacking themselves up to what other people have accomplished. And you will see a variety of really nasty, mean behaviors if they're jealous of you or envious of you. They're arrogant and condescending oftentimes. They're not fun to be around. They're not going to make you feel good if you're in a relationship with them. So these are just some of the DSM-5 explanations about what a person with narcissism looks like and the traits. And again, this is a pervasive pattern of behaviors over a lifetime. So not just maybe they were having a one-off day and a complete jerk, like not. This is pervasive and it happens frequently, and it's a very stable temperament and traits that they have over a long period of time. All right. Let's get next. We'll talk about the covert versus overt and how you can tell the difference. Okay, so overt narcissism I'm putting first because this one is the easier one to spot. I think we can all think of a few famous people that probably are overt narcissists, shall we say. They're easily observable to the casual eye because they have these extremely brash, loud, extroverted, look at me type of personalities. Okay, when they walk in the room, everybody notices. They like to be noticed. They're not going to be the wallflowers in the back of the room. They charm people essentially in the beginning to gain followers, all right? At the love bombing, so to speak. They're good at that. So they'll tell people what they know people want to hear to gain their followers and their sycophants and their accolades. But that's not going to last. As soon as they've hooked you, then come the abusive behaviors, all right? So love bombing and all of that, totally normal with narcissists, especially with the overt ones. They're arrogant. They need to have constant compliments and attention from other people. Again, they're not fun to be around because they are so overtly, I'm so much better than you, that it's nauseating to be around them. Anger is expressed extremely loudly and openly towards others in a very aggressive, menacing, hostile style. Narcissistic rage, you're going to see this more commonly with the overt narcissists. So again, when you tick them off, and you don't even have to be doing something all that great, maybe they said they wanted to take you out for dinner Thursday night and you said, oh, I can't, I have to visit my elderly aunt, and then they flip out and scream at you at the top of their lungs over the phone. So the anger is extremely loud and extremely present when they don't get their way. They're combative when threatened. So again, yeah, anytime they feel threatened, which is essentially a loss of control. So for narcissism, control freaks. If they feel that they're losing control is when you're going to see the abuse escalate, especially the verbal, psychological, emotional abuse spectrum, sometimes physical abuse. That's going to go up when they feel threatened and the loss of control is happening. They have a lack of humility and they brag about themselves a lot. They're very much boasters. You know, they love to talk about their achievements and how special and amazing they are. Again, nauseatingly, you know, for the rest of us. They dominate social interactions. So if you're in a room of people, the narcissist is over there talking loudly and everyone is just listening raptly to their excursions and how they did this and how amazing they are at doing this. And yeah, you're going to notice them. They're overly focused on status and wealth and how others perceive them. Again, they're rather empty inside. So the way they gain their self-worth is through achievements and wealth and beauty and power and fame and stuff like that, because they don't have a solid sense of self. And without that, they're pretty darn empty inside. So again, a healthy person's going to have a solid, stable sense of self. And so material things, etc., while nice, it's not like a deal breaker. Like plenty of healthy people, they could live in a small cabin in the woods and not care about any type of, power and wealth and stuff like that. They exploit others for their own personal gain. It's not unsurprising to see them lying a lot, manipulating people to get what they want, committing crimes, for example, to get what they want. They're very exploitive. And they break boundaries without any hesitation or thought. So boundary setting with these type of narcissists can be dangerous, actually, because if you cross their path and piss them off, they can be incredibly vengeful and hateful and spew vitriol at you and sue you and go after you. So they're very vengeful as well. So the covert narcissist is a different flavor than the overt. They're going to be quieter, more subtle. They're oftentimes more in the background. You're not going to see them front and center like you will the overt one. They demonstrate more passive-aggressive, underhanded, manipulative behavior. It's essentially, they're still wanting control. They're still control freaks, but it's more in the subtle, more underhanded attacks, like belittling you, minor criticisms, maybe backhanded compliments that at first you're like, oh, thanks. And then you're like, wait a minute, I think that was an insult, silent treatment when they don't get their way. They're also highly sensitive to perceived criticism. Both types of narcissists are. But again, they're going to be more withdrawn. So if they're hurt or, they've now suffered a narcissistic injury, you might see them being more like avoiding others, that silent treatment, pouting. They're highly defensive. So if you try to bring something up as opposed to just straight up like attacking you with vitriol, they're going to be more highly defensive and kind of probably blame shift and get out the you guns, but not necessarily come at you super aggressively like the overt will. They're more aloof, so they're not as sociable and outgoing. Very much play the victim. These are the ones that are like, oh, poor pity me. Oh, everyone else is so terrible to me. Oh. So they're very good at playing the victim to manipulate other people to get what they want, of course. They love sympathy. They love, people paying attention to them and being kind to them. And the best way to do that, of course, is pretend to be the victim. They're introverted, more, on the whole, they're more introverted. And they look to others to make them feel reassured. Again, they still, like the overt, they also lack a sense of stable identity and self-worth. So they are looking to other people to help them feel good about themselves and to have a sense of self-worth. They're better at pretending to care at first to hook you into the relationship. So maybe the overt, I would say, is more of like pouring on the charm and, again, very overt. But the covert is probably better at like manipulating people with fake friendship, like pretending to be that confidant you always wanted. And you're like, wow, I've never felt so heard and understood. Oh my goodness, right? And then they hook you right in. But then later, it's very highly likely that you're going to be experiencing like emotional neglect. So just not emotionally present in the relationship. Definitely a pervasive lack of empathy. Again, no reciprocity. It's not like there's going to be a give and take in the relationship. So some common behaviors that covert narcissists demonstrate. Again, they lack empathy for your emotions and well-being. Only their emotions and well-being matter. Yours does not. And you better center on them all the time. Now, this is something they both have in common, both types of narcissists. You're definitely going to have to center on them all the time. They control through guilt trips. They're more manipulative. They expect others to care for them and not the other way around. So again, no reciprocity in the relationship. They're more likely to gaslight you and make you feel like you're wrong all the time, make you second guess your own perceptions and feelings. Again, they have to be right all the time, but they're more subtle in how they, an overt narcissist would probably just be like, you're wrong, versus a covert narcissist is more underhanded and manipulated with more gaslighting and like those psychological manipulation tactics to undermine your sense of reality and undermine your sense of like knowing what's actually going on. They're dismissive of your perceptions, thoughts, and feelings. So they'll be critical, put you down, belittling you for your own thoughts, feelings, perceptions. More passive aggressive behavior. That's a big one with this one. They control other people through underhanded ways of behaving, like procrastination, dragging their feet. Say if you've asked them to do something and then 3 weeks later, they still haven't done it. So a lot of procrastination is seen with this style of narcissism. They do jobs poorly. So a way to get out of doing chores, right, is to do them poorly so you'll never ask them to do it again. Subtle sarcasm and put downs. Again, they're very frequent with the jibes, the subtle, frequent put downs. Probably I would say pretending that they're being humorous. Like, what, you can't take a joke? I was just joking. That type of humor. Pouting, silent treatment, in response to not getting their way is going to be more frequent. Scorekeeping, grudge holding, frequent complaining. They don't use direct, healthy communication to resolve conflict. So yeah, they're the ultimate grudge holders. They're going to be keeping score, what they did versus what you did. They're very much grudge holders. You could have said something that hurt their feelings 20 years ago, and they're still going to bring that up. Especially, of course, in an argument, because they always have to be right. So we'll drag up old, things that are not even relevant to whatever's going on right now to make sure that they're still right and one-upping you. Frequent complainers, they're never happy, never happy. In narcissistic relationships of either type, you're never going to have healthy, open dialogue. You're never going to be able to resolve problems, can we just talk openly about what's going on? I'm not mad at you. I don't want you to feel bad. I just want to talk about what's going on. Oh, no. Again, narcissists of both flavors are never going to be wrong. So you can't really engage in any type of communication that's healthy, and you can't really resolve conflict and problems either because they always have to be right and they don't care about your perspective. So that's why it's really, really difficult to be in relationships with these type of individuals. I hope you found this information helpful. As I mentioned, these type of individuals make terrible parents. They damage their children. Again, fundamentally, children are born into this world needing a healthy mirror in their parent. And a healthy mirror, what that means is the parent goes, I see you, my child. I love you. I love who you're becoming. You're so great at this. I'm so proud of you. If a child's hurt, for example, a healthy parent's able to go, come to me, tell me what happened. It's okay. You'll be fine. I'll help you get through this, right? There's empathy. There's understanding. Parents are modeling pro-social behaviors. That's not happening with a narcissistic parent. The incredible self-absorption with this personality disorder is just pervasive. And I think most adults who grow up with a parent with narcissistic personality disorder fundamentally feel that they're never good enough. They fundamentally feel that they are never seen, that their thoughts, feelings, and perceptions don't matter to their parent, and essentially that the relationship only goes one way. They're there and only exist solely to keep the parent happy, and if they don't, they're rejected in some way, shape, or form by the parent. So this is such an incredibly damaging personality style when it comes to parenting, and that's why I felt it important to talk about this particular parent and personality disorder, because at the end of the day, a lot of us coming in with complex trauma have parents, unfortunately, with these types of traits and behaviors. It doesn't mean we can't heal from them. Thankfully, we can. I got lots of videos on my channel addressing that very topic of healing from childhood abuse and neglect. So feel free to check them out and hit that subscribe button. Feel free to drop me any comments, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Next time, I'm thinking of doing a video on religious narcissists as well. So that's another flavor. So stay tuned for that. I'll probably be releasing that real soon as well. Take care, everyone. And I hope you have a wonderful day or night, depending on wherever you are in the world. Bye, everyone.